Hello everyone. On behalf of CASN, I'm happy to welcome you all to this Lunch and Learn, where we'll hear from two up-and-coming nurse educators on their experiences in pursuing a career in nursing education. Kathryn Halverson and Ainsley McQueen of Lakehead University will share with participants their own personal journeys through graduate school and teaching in hopes of inspiring the next generation of nurse educators. Kathryn is a faculty member at Lakehead University in the School of Nursing and is currently pursuing her PhD in nursing at Queen's University. The focus of her research is on the formation of professional identities in new nurses. She has worked in nursing education for 8 years and is passionate about her chosen career path. Kathryn's nursing experience in this area is in the area of public health and community health. Ainsley is a registered nurse in the intensive care unit at Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Center. She graduated from Lakehead University in 2014 with her BSCN degree and is currently undertaking a Master's of Nursing degree. For the past 2 years, Ainsley has enjoyed educating BSCN students as a preceptor, clinical instructor, and lab instructor. She aspires to pursue a career in nursing education. After Kathryn and Ainsley's presentation, we'll have some time for questions. To submit a question for them, please use the question and answer function on your screen. And once you finish typing your question, please don't forget to hit send. So I'll now turn the session over to Kathryn and Ainsley so we can begin. Ladies?
Thank you for the introduction, Elise, and welcome everyone to the webinar. I'm Kathryn.
And I'm Ainsley.
So we appreciate that many of you on the call today might be in very similar situations to ours and may be currently pursuing or maybe thinking of pursuing a graduate degree in nursing education. So you may be very familiar with that balancing act of life, work, and school, or you may have questions about whether or not that would be feasible or worthwhile at whatever point in your career you may be at. A graduate degree in nursing may have attracted you or may be attracting you for a variety of reasons, but we hope that this conversation encourages you to consider a career in nursing education. So while we're certainly not experts in academia, this is our disclaimer on that end, we'll be sharing our perspectives on why we're so excited about our aspiration to embrace careers as nurse educators. So our goals for this webinar, we've identified a few different things. Overall, our primary goal is to hopefully help you to consider pursuing a career in nursing education. And in doing that, we'll begin by presenting an overview of some national statistics that CASN has gathered related to enrollment in graduate nursing programs and related to the nursing faculty shortage in Canada. So our intention with this is to hopefully highlight career opportunities in education available to RNs with graduate degrees in nursing.
Following that, we will also share our experiences with the transition from graduate school to academia and how that has been an ongoing and exciting time in our careers. We will share a few pieces of advice we have for how others can begin to pursue careers as nurse educators and what the faculty role involves. So this slide that's up here is just discussing the CASN report. So the next few slides we're going to be talking about are based on statistics related to the graduate program enrollment and the nursing faculty shortage. This information was obtained from the 2014-2015 CASN report titled The Registered Nurses Education in Canada Statistics. This report was published in November 2016. And the link up on the slide there will take you directly to that report if you would like more detailed information.
And there should be another report coming soon on CASN's site with the new numbers from the 2015-16 period, so you can keep an eye out for that as well. But this data is collected from the 14-15 period, as Ainsley mentioned. So the CASN report provides nursing education statistics specifically for the 2014-15 period, however, also includes a comparison to data gathered since 2010. So you can clearly see from the statistics that admission to doctoral programs has been fairly stable since 2010. Over that 5-year period, the admissions in doctoral nursing programs ranged from 73 to 87 per year, and that, of course, is the sum of admission to all 17 doctoral nursing programs in Canada. Just for reference or interest as well, the master's program admissions has ranged from 775 to 1,025 students per year in all master's nursing programs in Canada over that same 5-year period. So just again, those numbers for the doctoral program, 73 to 87, and for master's program, 775 to 1,025 on average admissions per year. The number of graduates from doctoral nursing programs has ranged from 58 to 89 per year across Canada between 2010 and 2015, with the most recent number of graduates for the year 2015 being 66. So if you look at this report for the 14-15 period with 66 graduates in 2015, you might compare that to the 58 graduates in 2014, and you can see there an increase of 8 students. However, admission to doctoral programs decreased by 14.8% in that same reporting period of 2014-15. So that probably necessarily won't continue to go down or go up, but it's unpredictable as far as how admission changes and how the number of graduating students changes. So one was up a little bit and the other was down a little bit. So despite graduating that higher number of students with a PhD nursing in 2014-15, fewer students came into those same 17 doctoral programs in that same period.
So only 27.8% of schools offer a master's program and only 14.8% of schools offer doctoral programs. So options to pursue a graduate degree may be limited for some by access to education. In an effort to overcome the access barrier for graduate education, many programs have incorporated some form of distance education. 89% of master's programs and 37.3% of doctoral programs use some form of distance education, each to a varying degree. So this can be from as little as one course being online to all courses being online. So like Kathryn has mentioned, in Canada, there's only 17 doctoral programs in total. The access to master's and doctoral nursing programs is a challenge for Canadian nursing living in more rural communities. Our experiences, us both living in Thunder Bay and graduating from an undergraduate nursing program at a university that does not offer graduate studies in nursing, we had to both pursue distance education for our master's nursing degrees. As you can see in the statistics, the majority of schools do not offer graduate degrees in nursing. However, there has been an increase in interest to pursue graduate education from a distance, and hopefully the 37.3% of doctoral programs will grow their distance education component to help individuals overcome this big access barrier.
So to give you an idea of the current landscape of the nursing faculty shortage across Canada, the supply of nursing faculty overall is a major factor that's concern for CASN and for nursing schools across Canada as they worry about their capacity to continue to educate nurses and to grow their programs. So the CASN report includes statistics on admission and graduation from nursing programs and also gives us this landscape of the faculty complement, retirement, shortages of nursing faculty coming in. So one of the challenges for schools is to recruit and educate nursing faculty to teach in their programs and to replace the growing number of faculty retiring. So as of 2015, to give you an idea of the average age of nursing faculty, 58% of nursing faculty in 2015 were over 50 years of age, and 21.6% of RN faculty were actually eligible to retire at 60 or more years of age. So that's a little bit higher than the average age of the RN working in practice. So when we compare the number of graduates from master's and doctoral nursing programs, like we previously talked about, to the number of available RN faculty positions in Canada, you can easily see where the opportunities exist. And that really is the purpose of this webinar and our conversation today, is to hopefully paint that picture for you and hopefully inspire you to think about those opportunities and how you can perhaps help to meet that need. So there's a significant need, of course, for new RN faculty across Canada in light of the shortage. And we've included the statistic reporting that 212 permanent RN faculty retired in the year of 2015 alone. So when you compare that number to the 66 nurses who graduated from a doctoral nursing program in that same year, you can see the problem with faculty supply and what is referred to in the CASN report as the replacement pool. So schools were unable to fill 49 full-time faculty positions in the 2014-15 data collection period and projected at that time a need to hire 243 full-time faculty the following year in 2016. So the 4 provinces with the greatest projected need for RN faculty were Alberta, Ontario, BC, and Saskatchewan. And you can see on the slide the specific numbers for the provinces of Alberta, 58 faculty needed, Ontario 51 needed, BC 48 needed, and Saskatchewan 26 needed in 2016. So the 49 full-time faculty positions that were left unfilled in 2015 were primarily in the provinces of Saskatchewan, 11 positions, Alberta, 11 positions, and Ontario, 8 positions. So now we're going to talk a bit about the number of full-time RN faculty that are currently doing both. They're meeting the faculty shortage by occupying some of those positions while also doing academic upgrading. So you can see on the slide 11.7% of permanent full-time RN faculty are, like myself, engaged in academic upgrading programs while doing the job full-time. And that academic upgrading, depending on the person and where they're working, actually ranges from baccalaureate to postdoc studies. So a wide range of academic upgrading. 33.5% of the faculty upgrading their educational qualifications while working in the role are enrolled in master's programs, and 52.7% of faculty upgrading their qualifications are, like myself, enrolled in doctoral programs. So good to know that, you know, of the number of people who are doing both, there's 172 others out there in Canada, just like myself, that are doing the PhD program in Canada and are currently working somewhere as faculty. So while these stats are, of course, very informative and give us an idea of the number of nurse educators who are currently juggling academic upgrading while working as full-time faculty, Ainsley and I would like to share with you our experiences with that balancing act. And again, we recognize many of you on the call might be currently doing the same thing or have had similar experiences of juggling those things as well.
Kathryn, sorry, can I interrupt you? Can you just explain what academic upgrading is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go, oh, I'm still on that side. Okay, good. So academic upgrading is doing an additional degree to bring what your current credential is up to the next highest level. So for example, someone who has a baccalaureate degree could be doing academic upgrading, that's their master's, and they would be in that 33.5%. Someone who has a master's degree would be doing that academic upgrading to a doctorate degree, and they would be in that 52.7%. Someone who has a doctorate degree would be doing the academic upgrading to a postdoc, and someone who had maybe a diploma in nursing, they would be of the number of people who are upgrading with a baccalaureate degree. So it's bringing that level of credential that you have up to the next highest level. Does that help?
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So to me, the thought of doing a PhD while working full-time seems very overwhelming. Kathryn, how difficult is it to work full-time and do a PhD?
So, as I mentioned, it's reassuring to know that there's approximately 172 other current faculty members who are doing the same as I am, working full-time while being enrolled in a Canadian PhD program. So there's actually a few more on the stats on the CASN report, individuals on top of the 173 that are pursuing a doctoral degree outside of Canada, but most are doing their studies in Canada. Honestly, the most difficult part in my experience has been the self-directed nature of the dissertation. The most exciting part is having the opportunity to look at something very, very specific in a very in-depth way. Initially, I didn't think that was going to be so good. I thought, who would want to know so much about something so small? But the opportunity to work with the faculty I'm at Queen's for my PhD, so to work with them in doing that has been so educational and informative, and has really made me think about knowledge and nursing very differently than I used to. So it really is a privilege to have that chance to look at something so specifically for such an extended period of time and in so many different ways. Having a career in nursing education while pursuing graduate level education is actually a really nice fit. So I, in my experience, have found it relatively compatible to be doing my PhD while working at the university. My employer has been very supportive, and my school has really informed my work, and my work has really informed my school. So as Elise mentioned in my intro, I've been studying professional identity formation in new graduate nurses. So being so exposed to the nursing students, it certainly interests me how they transition into practice once they leave us. Immersion in nursing education in this way, being a student and being a teacher at the same time, really is a nice multi-level opportunity for growth, professional development, and lifelong learning. Another thing that's been helpful in balancing the working full-time with the PhD studies has been the funding opportunities available for doctoral students, and that really helps to make this education more accessible. I've also found the number of courses in my PhD to be fewer compared to my master's, and so the bulk of a PhD is usually that self-directed dissertation component, which is really, really flexible. But in being so flexible, of course, that brings with it its own challenges as we all aim to be self-directed and stay motivated and focused and all that. And that part certainly occupies the greatest amount of time at this level. So I'd say the juggle is probably not more difficult than it was when I was in my master's, and than it would be for you, Ainsley, working as an RN in ICU while pursuing a master's degree in nursing. So Ainsley, how have you managed to balance your work and your school?
So it can be very challenging at times. I've been working full-time for the past 3 years while completing a master's degree in nursing part-time, and this has all been through distance education. I've found personally that taking one course at a time has made the balance much easier. It does take longer to complete, but it provides me with a much better lifestyle to experience other opportunities, such as teaching part-time for the university. The online format of my master's program has been very flexible and allowed me to work shift work while completing my assignments and coursework. I actually recently switched to working part-time as I want to focus more on completing my courses, as I'm very excited to pursue further education and go into a PhD program. Like Kathryn said, I have some topics that I would really like to go into more depth about and learn more about specifically. So overall, I found that the biggest challenge in balancing work and school is prioritization and time management. I have to learn when to schedule my time to complete my graduate courses, when I can prep for teaching, as well as work my full-time job and my part-time job at the university.
So based on that, you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, really, I don't know, that doesn't sound so fun. Why would I want to juggle one more thing in my already complicated life? Or why would I want to continue in doing academic upgrading or further education? Is it really worth it? So that, again, is the purpose of why we're doing this webinar today and why we hope to share with you why we think it's worth it. And hopefully those stats have helped to show you that as well, that there's just so many opportunities in nursing education that if you, are currently pursuing a graduate degree in nursing or are considering that, you can certainly be hopefully one of the people to fill those vacancies now and in the future.
So, Kathryn, you've been teaching for over 8 years now, and you seem to really, really enjoy it. What do you like most about your job?
I find the opportunity to educate and inspire students to be very rewarding. I truly love working with the students and teaching. I love sharing my passion for nursing and lifelong learning. I really enjoy that faculty positions aren't just teaching and aren't just research, but involve opportunities for both teaching and research, as well as for service, and we'll talk about that coming up. So many opportunities to influence change, to make a difference, to work on small changes, big changes, to work on things in your community, within your school, and internationally. So I look forward to developing research partnerships around the world and influencing change for the nursing profession and even beyond that. So Ainsley, you're currently pursuing your master's degree with the hope of becoming faculty in the future. Why is this your career aspiration?
I've always had a passion for learning and inspiring others. I have enjoyed all of the teaching opportunities, from teaching lab to teaching clinical to being a preceptor, and it has really made me realize how passionate I am about pursuing a career in teaching. I love being with the students and watching them learn. My favorite part being watching them grasp those new concepts and seeing that click that they have and the smiles on their faces when they finally get what we're talking about. I have found with my part-time teaching that there's a great deal of autonomy, flexibility, and opportunity. I have noticed from working with the faculty members that the qualities I enjoy most about my experiences with lab and clinical are also a part of that faculty role. I've been so inspired by all of the faculty members I have had the opportunity to work alongside, and it's so exciting to imagine all of the potential opportunities that this career can bring. So this next slide, we're going to discuss some strategies that may facilitate your transition from graduate nursing education to a role as a nursing faculty. So what I found that worked best for me was starting small and only working 1 day a week. This fit really nicely into my schedule. I didn't have to give up a lot of time to be at the university just 1 day a week. And this 1 day a week did give me the confidence and experience to know that I wanted to go further with my teaching career.
So Ainsley, would you agree that your presence in the halls and in the labs has helped everyone to get to know you and understand your interest in nursing education as a career?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Everyone has been really supportive, and I have tried to remain open to new experiences. Being a familiar face around the school has fostered connections for me and allowed me to share my aspirations with others.
And so I know that for both of us, after we graduated from our undergraduate degrees, and especially once we had made the decision to do our master's degrees in nursing, we remained very well connected to faculty and benefited from their mentorship along the way. But we wanted to share that piece with you as well as a strategy, I guess, to help to maybe facilitate your transition into some of these available opportunities, to find a mentor, an individual in the School of Nursing, wherever you live, and hopefully start to establish a relationship with them and express to them your interest in pursuing this as a career and maybe embracing some smaller opportunities along the way, similar to what Ainsley's done.
So we recognize that it can be very difficult at times, and we've kind of described that, but we've also described how great this career path has been for us, and we encourage you to pursue and persevere with your graduate studies, as the reward will be worth it in the end.
So one of the last things we wanted to talk about was what exactly a faculty position in nursing entails. So I did mention it's not all teaching and it's not all research, of course, but there are 3 pillars in academia that make up faculty positions in nursing and in other disciplines as well. So those 3 pillars are teaching, research, and service. So teaching, the CASN report talks about RN faculty, so nursing faculty preparing registered nurses. So in different provinces that can look different. At Lakehead University where I teach, we teach collaborative programs with the college, and we teach undergraduate nursing students. And in some larger schools, they might offer master's nursing programs, doctoral nursing programs, NP programs, all sorts of programs to prepare nurses, many of which we've talked about here. So the different positions in different universities all look a little bit different depending on who you might be teaching, in what programs you might be teaching, and the concentration of these 3 areas of teaching, research, and service. The nice thing about a nursing faculty position or any faculty position is that some people like different areas more than others, and at different points in your career you might choose to focus on different areas more than others. So I've really been enjoying the teaching aspect since I started in this role 8 years ago. I like learning more about how to become a better teacher and how to promote critical thinking and how to be an effective knowledge transfer agent, I guess. The interesting thing about becoming an RN faculty is that, you know, we're not prepared as teachers for the most part. We're prepared as nurses, and so one day you find yourself at the front of the class and you're thinking, can I actually handle this? Do I actually know how to teach? I know what I'm trying to teach them, but I don't really know how to get that point across. So I found it really, really exciting to learn that piece of things, because that has been new. And I know a lot of my colleagues would probably share that experience as they've come into faculty roles and stood at the front of a class as a nurse and not as a teacher, but trying to figure out how to be an effective knowledge transfer agent and to get your messages across. And like Ainsley mentioned, watching the students get that is really, really very rewarding. As an RN faculty that's currently doing academic upgrading, the nice thing about the partnership of being in school and being in this job at the same time is that my pursuing my PhD, my doctoral studies, does count as my research in this role at this time. So that's a nice thing about pairing those 2 things together. So for the other 172 doctoral students that are working in this role, they're hopefully seeing some similar benefit in that respect as well, that this is considered sort of a part of the work that they're doing. The service piece I like a lot as well, and service applies to service within the university community, so within your school of nursing, within the broader university, within the city that you live, and beyond that. So things like recruiting new nurses and doing work in the community, sitting on a board, for example, doing volunteer work, fundraising, things of that nature. Our expertise as nurses and as members of the university can really be shared outside of that with other community groups, and you can really make a nice difference that way as well. And again, that's something that your performance and your role is evaluated based on. So if you enjoy that type of thing as well, or you see that being a good piece to potentially facilitate research collaborations, they all work really nicely hand in hand. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. And we'd like to thank CASN for inviting us to present this webinar. And hopefully we can have a bit of a discussion now with some of you on the call and discuss your questions. And as well, if you'd like to be in touch with us, we have our emails here as well. You can certainly reach out that way if you'd like.
Great. Thanks, Kathryn and Ainsley. We've had some great questions submitted during your presentation that I'm happy to relay to you. But if there are any additional questions out there or any follow-up questions to what's discussed moving forward, please feel free to continue to submit them through the question and answer field. So your first question is from Christina. She asked, do you think that pursuing academic upgrading while teaching as a faculty member full-time puts you at a bit of an advantage? Perhaps due to your ability to relate to the students, being one yourself, or due to your increasing knowledge base as your education and career carry on simultaneously?
Okay, thank you. Great question. So I touched on it briefly, but that's a good point. I didn't go into a lot of detail about how I mentioned the one informs the other and that they go hand in hand. I certainly find that as a student, someone who, is writing papers and using rubrics and looking at course outlines as a student, that certainly does help to inform the way in which I design assignments, the way in which I write rubrics, how I lay out a course, and how I deliver a lecture even. So having, for both Ainsley and I, having graduated from our undergraduate degrees in nursing not long ago, we have very recent memories of, in our minds, what worked really well that our teachers did, and we try to, of course, channel that into our practices as teachers as well. But yeah, I think that definitely being a student while being a teacher helps you to understand what's helpful as far as supporting the students in their learning and trying to be really clear in your expectations and things like that.
I also think that being a student while being an educator, you can relate really well to the students because you can kind of discuss how you have to balance your life and you're relating to theirs, because going to university in a BSCN program can be very stressful for them, and they really appreciate that you're kind of going through the same thing, and there is an end in sight, and it's a good
good opportunity to role model empathy and lifelong learning at the same time, maybe. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks. Your next question is from Ellen. She asks, was a thesis master's degree required to get your PhD? If you're in a course-based master's, does this place us at a disadvantage for being able to pursue a PhD?
So I can kind of start off on this question here. I'm in a course-based master's through Athabasca University, so it's all online. So I do not have to do a thesis, which was a choice of mine. And it doesn't put me at a disadvantage for applying and completing a PhD. It isn't a requirement of the PhD programs for you to have done a thesis in your master's courses. I found that a lot of my courses have prepared me to potentially write a thesis because that's what the master's courses kind of are all about.
Mm-hmm. And I as well had a course-based master's, so I went into my PhD not having done a thesis, and there were others in my class as well. So, I mean, overall of the 17 programs doctoral programs in Canada, if you really have your heart set on one specifically, I would definitely encourage you to contact them and ask them if they have any strict requirements related to thesis masters, for example, or if they do take students who have a course-based master's. But overall, my experience and the experience of others that I've known, perhaps it might be a preference of your supervisor or a preference of the school, but they don't exclude eligible students who have a master's and it was maybe course-based versus thesis-based. And a lot of master's programs have been moving over recent years toward course-based or including course-based opportunities for students. The one thing I would add to that, though, is, in hindsight, having done a course-based master's, what I would do if I did this all again is I would reach out for some sort of research assistant experience, even small, before pursuing my PhD, so that I had at least maybe done some data collection or transcription or something for a researcher that I could not only include on my PhD application, but just know more about before embarking on the doctoral journey there. So that would be my tip there, is that certainly don't shy away from a course-based master's. Definitely contact doctoral programs, especially if you have your heart set on one specifically. And remember that there's other opportunities that you can embrace while you're in your master's. That might be research assistant type of things that'll give you exposure and experience, but not have to do a big thesis at that point.
Great, thanks. Jessica has a bit of a follow-up question. She says she's interested in doing a PhD, but isn't sure what her thesis would be about. So the question is, did you know what you wanted to study before you started your PhD?
Yeah, so if I'm thinking of my whole class of, say, 7 students, and I'm trying to think of how many of us were sitting there in that first term actually knowing what we wanted to do and not knowing what we wanted to do. For the sake of the PhD application, the paper process itself, we did have to identify a topic, and this again might vary by program, so again explore those requirements in their application processes to see if you need to put forward an idea. If you do, go ahead and put forward something that seems to be in an area of interest or somehow aligned with your work perhaps, and give them what they're looking for that admissions process. Some PhD programs require that you have a supervisor at the time that you apply, so it might be worth having a conversation with the school and having a conversation with the supervisor to see how much detail they need at that time. But one thing I will say is that once we were in, my experience and that of my peers has been that we weren't tied to that. No one held you accountable for staying letter for letter or even on the same necessarily theme as what you came in with. And a lot of PhD programs front load the coursework that there is, and they do aim to help to expand your thinking. And in doing that, it's not uncommon for students to, in their first year of a PhD program, really change their mind or come to think of what they wanted to research very differently because that coursework was very effective in expanding their thinking, and maybe they've come to see what they were hoping to study, see it in a different light, maybe take a different approach, and maybe look at something altogether different.
Great, thanks. The next question is from Sarah. She says she has 2 small children but wants to explore a master's degree. Do you have to work a side job when you're in grad school to kind of support yourself and your family, or does the school offer you TA, RA, or scholarships, teaching opportunities? Can you speak a bit to that?
Sure. So I'm kind of trying to juggle life, school, working full-time and all of that as well, so I'm familiar with that. The program that I'm in, there are lots of opportunities to apply for awards and scholarships to kind of help with the costs associated. But what I have found worked best for me, again, was doing the one course at a time. This lightened the payment of my courses. I didn't have to pay up front a large amount of money every semester. So I really found that that was what worked for me. As well, in Ontario, the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario, or RNAO, they have a new nurses education initiative that you can apply for. It's up to $1,500 a year. So I have applied to that for the past 3 years, and I have received additional funding from them, which has been great to put towards my degree here.
And we talked about some of the flexibility with the distance or partly distance programs that are available. So that's another nice thing, is that there's so many of those programs that are partially or completely offered online, that makes it much more accessible for sure. And some programs have rules about the period of time within which you can complete that master's degree. So definitely something to look into as well. If you do choose a program, how long are they going to give you to do that, potentially part-time, to spread it out a little bit more so it's less demanding and gives you a little more opportunity perhaps to work on the side, some of which might be in nursing education while you're pursuing that master's. A lot of our lab and clinical instructors over the years have been pursuing master's degrees in nursing while working as lab instructors and clinical instructors.
Great, thanks. The next question is from Tracy. She says, was it hard to transition from floor nursing to teaching? I only do limited teaching and it is quite informal. She's BN prepared. Is it difficult to transition?
I have found my experiences with teaching not to be very difficult. Of course, the first couple of times I was up in front of a bunch of students, I was a little bit nervous, but students are so excited to learn and excited to be there, especially in the DSCN program, that they just value all of your experiences and all of your suggestions. I started small, like I said. I was just teaching in practice labs, so students could come in, practice their skills, and I would facilitate any kind of questions that they had. I then moved into teaching labs, so I teach a physical assessment lab, which is mostly hands-on. So we don't do a lot of talking up front, and we do more hands-on learning. And again, I found this transition to be really easy and very rewarding. I love being around the students, and like I said, their passion for knowledge is just, it's great, and it's nice to be around.
Mm-hmm. And then the other nice thing is that there's always colleagues in any school that will be working around you that have gone through that same transition, and the support that, you know, I received and that Ainsley's received from the people that we've worked with in that has been just tremendous. I mean, they all remember what it was like their first day standing at the front of the class. And it really is more exciting than it is scary, at least in my experience. It was definitely strange at first to stand in front of a group with a clicker in my hand and a PowerPoint thinking, okay, I have no idea if I've highlighted the right stuff here, but I'll try to be clear, throw in the odd story, be enthusiastic, and hope that this gets across. And it's very easy to read their faces and see if it is getting across or not. And then you make changes and you tweak things from there to try to keep it interesting and be very clear and all of that stuff. So, I mean, it's just thinking back to being a student and what you liked the most about what your teachers did, and trying to channel that into your design of how you're going to teach them. And they really do value nurses who are standing at the front of the room speaking about their floor nursing experiences. So the more you can pull that into the teaching and the more you can rely on that as the base of your lectures, you'll be so far ahead in your ability to do that. So certainly transitioning from floor to teaching, as much of that floor nursing as you can bring to the teaching, the better the teaching will be.
And we can suggest, too, that if you are a little bit nervous about that transition, is to start small and get to know the faculty and start in a lab, start in clinical, start in practice labs or whatever you can. And then as you get to know faculty and you realize how supportive they are, they'll give you more opportunities to do lectures here and there so that you can get used to that transition to a real faculty member.
And you could also offer to do a guest lecture on your favorite topic or your area of clinical expertise. You could tell someone at the university, whoever your hopeful mentor person is or whoever you've got a relationship with there, that you have an interest in doing a guest lecture on your specific area of clinical expertise, and would there be an interest in that? And that gives you a chance just to get your feet wet and see if you like it before you spend a bunch of time moving in that direction.
thanks. The next question comes from Allie. She asked, do employers help with academic upgrading?
Excellent question. So honestly, I mean, unfortunately, the answer to that is it depends on the employer and how much they're able to give to that as far as money and support in the frame of time. So my employer, for example, has been very supportive in giving me the time and basically release from my workload to do my coursework. And in the nursing program I teach in, we run through the spring and through the summer as well. So I was able to displace some of my workload into the spring and summer and still be able to teach a full-time load while keeping my teaching mostly out of the academic year when I was doing my initial coursework in my doctoral program. So every employer situation would probably be unique, but worth a conversation with them as far as what type of support they might be able to give you. The other piece I'll mention there is when I was talking about the 3 pillars, the teaching, research, and service, the employer is supportive in that by nature these faculty positions are designed with a research component, and many of the schools of nursing will recognize your pursuit of graduate nursing education or your academic upgrading as being your research component. So it's part of the job that you're hired to do, and it's part of what's preparing you to really truly fill in a more permanent way the job you've been hired into, if that makes sense.
Great, thanks. I have a question for you both. I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what made you decide to go into grad school.
I wanted to continue on my learning right away, so I only worked for about a year before jumping right into a master's degree. I also completed a certificate for critical care in that year, but I've always had that passion for learning and advancing my career. I knew that a job in ICU would be a great experience and give me many opportunities, but I wanted a little bit more, even just starting as a new graduate. So I knew that pursuing graduate studies would be a good fit for me. I've also found doing my master's that I have found different topics that really interest me and that I'm really passionate about, which makes me want to jump into that PhD even more and explore everything else. And then, of course, I've had the opportunities to teach as well, and just being around the faculty at the university has been great inspiration for me.
So for me, my scenario is probably slightly unique. I actually in high school wanted to be a professor, and I talked to my guidance counselor in high school and I said I want to be a professor, and she said, a professor of what? I said, I don't know, I don't really care. Well, you'll have to pick something. I said, I don't know, how about English? She said, no, I think you should be a nurse. I said, okay, fine, I'll be a nurse. So anyway, I ended up as a nursing professor, which worked out fine. And I realized a little bit later that all professors are sort of English professors because you sure mark a lot of papers. And as a PhD student, you kind of feel like an English major as well because that's so much of your life. So as an undergrad student, that stayed with me, that dream to be a professor, but I really did fall in love with nursing at the same time. So they came together very nicely, and I was sitting in class as an undergrad student, constantly watching my professors, very interested in how they designed the course, how they were delivering the lecture, and to what extent that was, in my opinion, effective or whatever. And then during my undergrad, I also took to sort of teaching on the side some of my peers. Right before a test, I would put together like a little crash course in the course and try to summarize and pull together the concepts and things. And I really, really enjoyed that. So inspired by my teachers, inspired by my experience as an undergrad student and those tiny little bits of exposure I had to what teaching nursing would really look like and feel like, that really motivated me to, as soon as I was done my undergrad, back in 2006. I started in my master's immediately after, and it was a master's in nursing with a specialization in education because I knew that I wanted to work in education and wanted to learn a little bit about that, about actual course development and things like that, because that was an area of interest for sure.
Great, thanks for sharing. Are there any other questions out there from any of the people listening in? So I'm not seeing anything come through, so I think in that case we'll wrap up for today then. Thank you again, both Kathryn and Ainsley, and to everyone who participated. Please note that when the meeting window closes, you'll be sent to a short evaluation survey regarding today's session. It shouldn't take any more than 5 minutes to complete, and your opinion is greatly valued in planning future sessions. Finally, the recording of this session will be made available on CASN's YouTube channel in the coming days. Please feel free to share the link with your networks. So once again, thank you, Kathryn and Ainsley, for your time today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Elise, and thanks to everyone on the call. And do feel free to contact us by email if anything comes up or you think of any additional questions or comments for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye now.